Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we'll be discussing about the skeletal muscle relaxants. As we all know, skeletal muscle relaxants are the drugs that act alongside general anesthetics, and they peripherally act on the neuromuscular junction and cause a reduction in muscle tone, and they also act centrally on the cerebrospinal axis. These drugs are usually given alongside the general anesthetics in order to potentiate the action of the anesthetic as well as to ease the surgical procedure. These skeletal muscle relaxants are divided into peripherally acting ones and centrally acting ones, out of which the peripherally acting muscle relaxants will be dealt with in this video. The peripherally acting muscle relaxants are of two types. There is neuromuscular blocking agents as well as directly acting agents. Directly acting agents being dantrolene sodium and quinine, and the neuromuscular blocking agents are again divided into depolarizing agents and non-depolarizing agents. Depolarizing agents are nothing but succinylcholine and decamethonium, whereas the non-depolarizing ones are again divided into long-acting, intermediate, and short-acting ones. Long-acting ones being D-tubercularine and pancuronium, and intermediate ones being atracurium, cis-atracurium, vecuronium, pipecuronium, etc., and the short-acting ones being mivacuronium. The actions of the skeletal muscle relaxants, as I already told you, is to reduce the muscle tone. Therefore, the action on the skeletal muscle will be to reduce the muscle tone, and they cause flaccid paralysis. Flaccid paralysis. On the autonomic ganglion, they have agonistic actions, meaning they act against the autonomic ganglion. Histamine release is one of the most important action of skeletal muscle relaxants, because histamine release, as we all know, is from the mast cells, and that can cause bronchospasm, bradycardia, hypotension, flushing, and many more severe complications. And therefore, these skeletal muscle relaxants should be used with proper care. On the CVS or the cardiovascular system, it causes bradycardia, hypotension, but certain drugs like pipecuronium is a intermediate acting one, might also cause tachycardia. Now, as we all know, whenever there is decrease in blood pressure and bradycardia, it is associated by vagal action, and that can cause tachycardia. On the CNS, we all know that the skeletal muscle relaxants are nothing but quaternary polar compounds. And therefore they cannot cross the blood-brain barrier and do not enter the CNS, and therefore do not have any specific action on the CNS. Sometimes they might cause CNS toxicity, which is seen very rarely. On the GIT, they cause paralytic ileus. Now, one of the most important interactions of these drugs are very important, which must be remembered in order to give them with following agents. Firstly, whenever the skeletal muscle relaxants, especially the peripherally acting ones, are given alongside thiopentane sodium, especially if I take for example the succinylcholine, which is a depolarizing neuromuscular blocking agents. Succinylcholine and thiopentane sodium should not be put in the same syringe, because whenever they intermix, they might cause a chemical reaction which could be very dangerous. With general anesthetics, they act as adjuvants, that is, they potentiate the action, they cause reduction in muscle tone, and therefore ease the procedure in the surgery. With anticholinesterases, as we all know, anticholinesterases are the drugs which prevent the action of cholinesterase enzyme on acetylcholine, and therefore increase the concentration of acetylcholine. Examples being neostigmine. Neostigmine, as we all know, is given alongside is given to treat Parkinsonism, and is given also to treat myasthenia gravis. So with anticholinesterases, it must be remembered that since anticholinesterases increase the concentration of acetylcholine, and the function and action of skeletal muscle relaxants is to reduce the binding of acetylcholine, so that they reduce the muscle contraction. Therefore, they must be given with proper care, and sometimes they might cause toxicity. With antibiotics, now one more point is neostigmine is usually given after the skeletal muscle relaxants are given to the patient during surgery to hasten the recovery procedure, because neostigmine increases the acetylcholine content, and therefore it helps to bring back the patient from a state of reduced muscle tone to a normal recover state. With antibiotics, now antibiotics reduces the movement of acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft and reduces its action. Therefore, skeletal muscle relaxants should be given with proper care in patients who are taking antibiotics, because it can worsen worsen rather than produce recovery. With the calcium channel blockers, they're just competitive blocking agents. All these calcium channel blockers, they work on the cardiovascular system, and they're used in hypertension and bradycardia, etc. And therefore, they can be acting as blocking agents. With diuretics, they don't have any specific action but can be competitive blockers, directly acting ones. With diazepam, quinidine, and propranolol, we know diazepam is an anticonvulsant drug, so this potentiates the actions of these drugs. The uses of the skeletal muscle relaxants, as I told you, firstly being adjuvants to general anesthetics. Adjuvants are nothing but given alongside general anesthetics to potentiate the action of the other one, so that it can cause increased it can provide an increased time gap so for the surgical procedure to be performed. And they also reduce the muscle tone, and they help the patient in this way that it prevents them from feeling any pain as such. Assisted ventilation. In patients who are especially admitted in a critical care, these skeletal muscle relaxants, they help in assisted ventilation. And then convulsions and trauma from electroconvulsive therapy. Electroconvulsive therapy is usually given to patients who are mentally unstable, and especially the ones with convulsions and trauma that can occur from electroconvulsive therapy. The skeletal muscle relaxants, they decrease the trauma and convulsions, and therefore they are used with care for patients with electroconvulsive therapy, because they also reduce the pain and the effects after an electroconvulsive therapy, because it's a very painful procedure. And then tetanus and status epilepticus, it is used only in very severe cases. Thank you for watching my video, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.